We're just doing a little chatting well, we're in the chat right now. Warm-up question is, how do you develop community in your classes? Maybe when you aren't teaching online, what would you normally do? And just the question, how can students and teachers get to know each other? If anyone wants to respond verbally, please do. Oh yeah, Gloria, I think we can hear your music maybe, is that possible? No? I know you're muted, but for some reason there's a yellow outline around your, oh, okay. Yeah, music's off, we don't hear it now, so. It was kind of nice, but at some point we.
So can we chat verbally, Eric?
Yes, please do, jump in, yeah.
Oh, okay. What I did, I had a chance to meet the students during registration. So they knew that I would be their instructor. And once I knew they would be in my class, what I did was I sent everyone a welcoming email, and I showed them how to get on Schoology, and I gave them a little mini assignment, like 5 questions. What are your goals? What subjects are you strong in? What subjects do you need more work in? And then once they answered those questions, I linked it to a story on Common Lit about a young woman who was homeless, who overcame a lot of odds and ended up getting a full scholarship to Georgetown. And then when we got together, the first class, I went over how to get on Schoology. We went over the course outline, but then I put them in breakout rooms to discuss their responses to what their goals were. And then when we got back together, we could say, hey, a lot of our goals are the same. And how can we be united in this learning experience now to reach our goal of high school equivalency? And then after that, I shared my screen and we went over the Common Lit story that had really interesting questions. They have guided questions, they have assessment questions, and they have part of the Common Lit is you could actually click a button and the whole story can be read aloud. The computer reads you the story as well. So it was kind of nice to have that set up. And I think the first class I had yesterday, it went pretty well.
I love that. I like the idea that they had some time to work on their goals individually before sharing with other students. It also worked as a pre-reading for the article you were sharing with them, right?
Yeah.
It feels like it had a lot of, it did a lot of things at once. Help them set some goals, help, connect, make some community among students.
Yeah. It was nice also because I asked, do you want the computer to read the story to us, or do we each want to take a turn reading a little paragraph? And they all took turns, so I could actually hear their voices and I could hear some decoding skills, or if a student stumbled, another student said, oh, that's how you say reluctantly. Or so right away, it was kind of a nice activity. Yes, I'll type in that link so people can see that story.
Thank you, Alexis. That's lovely.
Sure.
Who else would like to share? Somebody else would like to share? Go ahead.
I'll jump in. I teach beginners, and this morning I started something that I think I'm going to do every morning. I did this thing called morning questions, and basically I had I don't know, maybe a dozen questions that were really easy and that they pretty much know, how's the weather today? Where are you from? Where are you right now? Sort of reviewing the WH questions. And so that was a good warm-up exercise for them. And then kind of having them ask each other as much as we could in, I had gallery mode on. And one thing, Eric, I'm gonna wanna talk to you about a little is breakout rooms, because I'd like to be able to get them in breakout rooms and do that more in depth with maybe 2 or 3 at a time.
Lovely. Thank you, Gloria. Appreciate it. Maybe one more share before we jump in.
Here, I'll share. It's Donna.
Hi, Donna.
Hello. So what I did a lesson on COVID today, on vocabulary and pronunciation for the most part. And I found that if I start my class with all the thumbnails with a without a share, with all the thumbnails up on the screen. And I get my students in a conversation together versus in the breakout groups, which I do later. I find that they talk to each other and they're very engaged in what the other said. And today we had a conversation about COVID, and they're very ready to talk about the topic and have a lot of personal experiences. So I guess what I'm saying is I start the class by having them all on the screen together and talking to one another. And later I go into the breakout groups.
Lovely. Thank you, Donna. It reminded me that maybe I should unshare. Like I think sometimes I forget, and I'll be sharing something that's not really necessary. It might make sense if if students don't need information in front of them. It's easy. It's nicer to be able to look at each other, right? So it's a good point.
One more thing.
Please.
I've also been joining my class 5 minutes late, even though I'm there, I'm muted and I don't have my video on, and I'm allowing them to talk to each other without me there. And I've told them I'm doing this and I want them to speak in English. I've been fairly successful so far, but without me there and with them being able to talk each other as soon as they tune into the class, they have been having conversation. And I've been eavesdropping.
It's a nice idea. It's sort of like the intentional disappearing, like where the teacher fades away a little bit to see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
The student
lead
sent
us
the link.
in a.
I called into John. He sent it to me and I sent it to them.
I'm gonna lead us in a quick activity in breakout groups. Well, actually, no. What I'd like to do first, I'm sorry, is tell you just a little bit about what we're doing today. That you know from the description that our goal is to talk about some of these tools in Zoom that can help classes be a little bit more interactive. My hope is that we can, situate these tools in our skills as teachers, in the things that we already do to make students feel comfortable, to get them talking to each other, to help them be like they're thinking to be the center of the class. But obviously that's much easier in person. We're used to doing that in person. Many of us have, years of experience doing this sort of thing in person. Then we're trying to figure out how do we do this online. And I'm right there with you. I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't have any special secrets. I'm learning from you all as well. But so we're going to look at a couple of these tools and see which ones you feel like are going to be most useful for you. I have them sort of in what feels to me like the priority from what I hear from people and what has been useful for me. Breakout rooms being the most useful for me so far. Annotation being pretty useful, but I find Zoom annotation a little bit limited, but maybe other people have really good ways of using it. There are other ways to do annotation outside of Zoom, but we're going to look at the Zoom way of doing it. And then polling students. There are also ways to do that outside of Zoom as well, Google Forms, that kind of thing. But hopefully we'll have time to look at setting up a quick poll as well. It's a little bit ambitious to do all these at once because the truth is each of them require their own practice. But I'm hoping we can do a little bit of each, some time for you to practice, and time for us to talk about each of these things and think about how do we actually use these tools a little bit in our classes. So anyway, these are our goals. What I'd like us to do, we're going to jump into a quick breakout room to do a warm-up activity, and I'm going to take some quick screenshots of the behind the scenes so I can show you when you come back out. But the activity is called 3 Things in Common. So in your breakout groups, there are actually 5 breakout groups, so I'm gonna have to make another box here. I made a mistake. But in your breakout group, your goal is to find 3 things that everyone in the breakout room has in common. So it could be anything. So you're gonna get extra points for being creative. Are there things that you all have in common that maybe other groups don't have in common? Right, so a lot of us are teachers here. If you say everyone in our group is a teacher, it's good, but maybe we could push it a little bit farther. Can you find other commonalities that are maybe more unique? So we're looking for unique commonalities potentially. I'm going to put a link in the chat so that you can get to this Google document, the one we're looking at right here. So I just put a link in there. We don't need everybody in the room to open up the Google document. I mean, feel free to if you want. Don't look too far ahead because there's stuff in there for what I'm going to be doing later. But maybe somebody in each group could take notes. So your goal is to just find 3 things in common. You're going to have to talk to each other a lot. And when we share back after the activity, you just need to choose one. Like, what's your favorite one thing, one unique commonality that you want to share with everybody else? Does that make sense? Could somebody give it back to us in our own words? What are we doing?
We're finding 3 things that everyone in your breakout room have in common. And you're asking us to be a little imaginative about it, right?
Thank you, Tim. Nice to see you. Okay, I'm opening the rooms. You guys will have like 6 minutes, not a long time. So good luck. Welcome back. I think we're all here now. There were 5 groups. Could we get a quick introduction from each group and tell us one commonality that you want to share? And maybe we'll go in order. So group, do you know which numbers you are? So group 1, I guess.
I don't know.
We were group 1. I was with Moya, Farland, and Publio. And we came up with, we have all traveled outside the United States.
Very nice. Thank you. Group 2.
I don't know what number we were.
We were 3.
Here, I will share the screen that I saw, and we'll come back to this in a minute. Does that help? So Kate, I'm sorry, help me, is it Nippon and Teresa?
Yes. Yeah, so what we discovered that we have in common is that we're all from other places.
So other countries or other places outside?
Other countries, other places outside of this country.
Cool. Group 3. Donna, Mercedes, and Ruby.
Donna, I think you're muted.
We all do a form of exercise class each week. One yoga, one Zumba, one salsa, but they're all exercise classes.
All exercise and they're all different. That's nice too. Cool. Group 4, Emmanuel, Gloria, and I think there's one more person. I don't have the other names.
It's just Emmanuel and oh, I'm sorry, I forgot.
It's Carrie.
Oh, Carrie, yes, Carrie. So we all drink wine.
Like right now?
Preferably now, but unfortunately not now. But
I would be if I
we all
wasn't
drink
pregnant.
wine.
I'm actually having one right now.
There you go.
And last group, Stacy, Thea, and Tim.
Yes, group 5 was Stacy, Thea, and Tim. The thing that we have in common is that our first and our last names begin with consonants.
Ooh.
ST, TG, and TS, right?
Yeah.
Very cool. So with students, I think we would clearly spend a little bit more time with this activity. It's kind of rushing through it a little bit, but maybe you can kind of get a sense of what it might be like. How was it for you?
Good.
What
I think
was
a little
it
bit of
like to do?
scaffolding. Yeah.
Say it again, Stacey.
I think a little bit more scaffolding, maybe things that give them ideas. If we, things in common like hobbies, traveling, books or something that might give them a little idea of what direction they can go.
That's a good idea.
I
Anything?
actually did.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Mercedes. Go ahead.
No, that I actually did this activity earlier. It was my first day of classes today, and I did it earlier with my students. And I think it's good because if they don't know each other at first, it might be a little awkward just to say personal things about you, but just trying to find what you have in common. I think it's also going to allow you to get to know the other people in the group, because you're also going to know what you don't have in common. So I think that's nice.
Mercedes, what level are your students?
Pre-intermediate, intermediate.
Okay, and it went well with them?
Yes, it did. It did.
You did it in breakout groups like this?
Yes. So I used Padlet. So then I showed them how to do it, and then from there they had columns for each breakout room, and then they wrote down the sentences.
What you said, Padlet, is that what you used?
Mm-hmm.
Would you mind putting a link in the chat so people can follow that up to see what that is?
Sure.
How many, and I'm also curious how many students you had per group?
There were 12 students today, so I had 3 per group, but it went well. I'm going to say that it went well, but at the same time, they were writing, let's say first they were writing individual sentences, and then I told them, no, it's actually the whole group. So from there, they started writing down more things. I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to put the link up now.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, could you tell us how do you put a link in the chat? I don't know how to do that.
Sure. So I just copy and paste the link, and then literally you copy the link. You can do it from the top from the browser, or you can just look where in every website now you can share. Most likely, if it is collaborative,
Mm-hmm.
you can share the link. So you just press there, and then it allows you to copy it. When you go to the chat, then you just paste it there.
Okay, I'll have to try that. Thank you.
No problem. Let me just look for it.
I'll give you a quick example. This activity is from this website, collectedny.org. And I will copy the link. So this is we call it 5 things in common. You could do 3 things. I think 3 things is probably a little bit more accessible, especially online. But if you like, you can copy the link up at the top. Hopefully you all are seeing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Copy that and then just look for the chat where we've been writing. And so 5 things in common. So that's the activity that we just did. Okay, so what I'd like to do now, I'd like to jump into a little bit of this, let's see here. Jump into a few of these tools here that we're going to look at today. So let me back up a little bit. So to start, breakout rooms, it's a little tricky to practice breakout rooms. A lot of the stuff we can practice together in Zoom. Breakout rooms is one of those things that's harder to practice together because only the host can do it. It's a little harder for us. I mean, I can tell you the steps and that's what I plan to do, but it's to really, to start to feel comfortable doing it, I think you kind of just have to leap in. So I'm wondering, I did ask in my initial survey, but I'm wondering just maybe by like a show of hands or, a thumbs up in your screen, how many people have used breakout rooms with students? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe. Okay. So cool. So at least half of us have used it. Before we leap in, I'm wondering, what are there things for those of you who have already used it that you still want to know? What are the things that you feel like you need to understand? Go ahead, Donna.
Yes, as you know, Eric, I had some challenges the other day with breakout rooms, which I overcame today. But today's challenge, there seems to be a new challenge every day. The box that you have shared with us where it says create 4 breakout rooms or however many you want.
Yeah.
I was not given that box today.
Mm.
It didn't turn up. So what I had to do is assign each student to a breakout room, nor could I find a prompt in the space you showed me the other day in which I could change this. It's always been there. I don't know if it's the Zoom, the version of Zoom, but I couldn't find create X number of breakout rooms today. That dialog box was not available to me.
Got it. Okay.
My thing today.
Other questions or things you want to know about for those people who have already used breakout rooms?
Yeah, I had a disaster yesterday. In the afternoon, I put everyone in breakout rooms and I tried what you did. I put like a little 10-question true and false thing that I wanted each breakout room to view. So I put it in the chat box. I told one person in each of those rooms, you actually go in the chat and open it so you can all see it on your screen. It didn't happen. And then when I tried, there was the countdown to get everyone back. Everyone was thrown off. I was on Zoom alone. So I had to send out a mad email to everyone. Here's the link again. Come back. I'm waiting. I'm all alone. I said, holy cannoli, what on earth did I do? Everyone came back and I'm like, okay, from now on, I'm going to share my screen until I know what I'm doing, because I thought, putting the link in the chat box and everything else was going to work. It did not.
So which part didn't work? The part that they weren't able to open the thing that you put in the chat? That was the issue?
Here's the thing. I tried joining a few rooms to see if the assigned person would open it, and they couldn't. So I'm thinking I should have made them a co-host. Maybe that was it? I don't know.
To open a link?
To open up a chat box and then hit the link. No, that was not it. I don't know what I did.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think
Mhm.
sorry, I think what happens is the chat disappears when they're in breakout rooms. I experienced that today. That not everybody can see the chat once they're in breakout rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be useful to make sure that everyone has a document. I mean, so what happens, right? One of the challenges is if you put people in breakout rooms, they need to have something to be working on.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not something that's completely verbal, they need to either write it down or they need to be able to open up another window. They need to have something to share and look at together. And so it might be useful to make sure that everyone can open the thing before you put them into rooms.
Yeah, is that true? I thought it was true that you could see the chat in breakout rooms, but can you not? I haven't tried it.
Some of the stuff changes. So maybe it's different situations, but my experience is that wherever you are, it sort of has a record of where you've been. So I don't know how to say this, but if you come into a meeting late, you won't see the chat that happened before you got there. And if you are the host, if you go into a room, you will see the chat that has been there since you were there, but when you leave, you don't see it any longer. And each person keeps a running record of whatever chat they participated in. So I think students should be able to see chats that happened when they were in the large room together. But maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't, in my experience, it doesn't disappear, but maybe it's different.
Maybe they can only see the chat that's happened during the course and within the people in that breakout room, not what happened prior to.
My understanding is that they can see what has happened prior to, but maybe there are certain circumstances when that's not true. So I don't. Okay, so I'm hearing some of the issues. These are, it sounds like in these cases, mostly it's not, I mean, there's either this issue that's not exactly a breakout room issue. It's like, can students open a link? Can they get this document that's necessary in order for a breakout room to be successful, but it's not precisely the breakout room issue. But the other thing about like being able to create a certain number of breakout rooms, that's central to using it, right? Let's go through a couple of the basics because not everyone has used these, but used breakouts before. I mean, at this point, everyone has experienced one. That's what we just did, right? You go into these little rooms and you have smaller conversations. As the host, you can control how big those rooms are, how many people are in each room, how many there are. You could have a different room for every one of your students. You could put them in their own room. And if you want them to be alone for a few minutes, I'm not sure why that'd be useful, but you could. You could do 2 in a room. It's up to you. You can do it manually, like you choose individually who goes with who, or you could
It takes a lot of time.
It takes a lot of time. Yeah, you're supposed to be able to potentially do this in advance of the meeting. I haven't successfully done that. I tried to do it today and I wasn't successful, like to actually set up the groups before the meeting starts, but it didn't work for me. Anyway, so the first thing to do is as a host, you have this toolbar. Your toolbar now isn't going to look quite like this, right? Because this is my hosting toolbar. I had to take a screenshot because I can't really show you what I'm doing while I'm doing it. But so these meeting controls, there's a few things here that I have as a host that you don't have, right? The breakout rooms is one of them. The polls is another. If you don't see breakout rooms as a host, you won't see it now. But if you don't see breakout rooms when you're hosting a meeting, you can click on a more. You might have like a couple, like 3 dots. You click on more and there's some other choices, right? So when you click on breakout rooms, what should happen is something like this pops up, where you can choose the number of breakout rooms. And you can click assign automatically or assign manually. Truthfully, I usually do automatically because if I'm trying to teach a class, unless students are working on something individually or teachers or unless participants are working on something where they give me 5-10 minutes to do this, if everyone's looking at me and I need to do this on the spot, it's always going to be automatic because I don't have time to figure out who goes where. But if you choose the number of breakouts, it'll automatically split them up sort of evenly. Like right now we have in this room, let's see here. How many people do we have?
17.
17, right? So if we did 4 rooms, there's gonna be 4 rooms with 4 people and 1 room with 5. Is that right? No, 3, sorry.
Well, I think it's counting you as well, Eric, so.
Okay, so maybe it's just, right. Sorry, but my math was wrong anyway, but 3, maybe, so if it's 17 participants, it would be 3 rooms of 4 and 1 room of 5, but maybe it's counting me anyway. But that'll happen automatically. You won't get a quarter person. And then you just hit create. Now creating it doesn't open the breakout rooms, it just creates them. So the next thing you'll see is something like this here, where you see each of the rooms and you see all the people in the room. So this is the one I created when we first started. Let me back up.
I have a question.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I have a question. So where do you go on your phone to create it? Because I don't see the thing that said create breakout room.
Are you hosting from a phone? Is that what you said?
Yeah, let's say I'm hosting from a phone and then I'm trying to create the breakout room. Or even on a computer too, because I don't see it even on my computer.
You don't see it on a computer either. Well, you won't see it now because you're not the host for this meeting. So unfortunately, you have to be the host in order to see this. I think it is possible to do it from a phone, but I haven't done that. But the same thing is true. You have to be a host. Let me back up a little bit here. I'm sorry, go ahead, Farlan.
No, I said thank you.
Oh, okay, your audio is a little delayed. So what will happen after, before you open the rooms, there are a few options I recommend you take a look at. So you'll have this screen pop up here, right? So you choose the number of breakout rooms, you hit create. Then then you'll be ready to open the breakout rooms. But one thing I would recommend before you do that is that you click on options. I've sort of learned this the hard way, that it's best to automatically move assigned participants into breakout rooms. So if you put a check here, otherwise, if you don't put a check here, what will happen is each student is going to get a little message pops up that says, do you want to join the breakout room?
Oh, okay.
And they have to, so, you know, and students on a phone, they don't find it, they don't, and it ends up that people are sort of grayed out. They're not really, they're kind of lost in no man's land for, you know, the truth is it's a sort of an unnecessary step. So I would just check this here, then they automatically go in the breakout rooms. People don't get lost. I tend to uncheck this, that students can't return to the main session. I haven't seen a need for that. There's a new option here that Zoom, this is like just in the last month, and I haven't tried it. If we have time, it'd be fun to try it today, where participants might be able to choose their own room. So you don't assign them to rooms and you let people choose the room they want to go to. It's something to play around with. I haven't done it yet. For now, I wouldn't worry about it. If you're assigning them, you want to uncheck that. You don't want that on.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
If you automatically move all assigned participants, does that mean that they cannot come back to the main room? Because I did have an incident where there was like an argument, and so luckily the student knew how to come back to the main room and find me. So if I click that, they won't be able to do that.
Well, that's an interesting, you know, I hadn't considered that situation. So maybe like from learning from your experience, maybe this option of allow participants to return to the main session anytime, this maybe should be on. I think that's unrelated to the automatically part. The automatic part is just at the beginning, they don't have to hit join, it just does it.
So I could click both, check both of them, both features.
Yeah, so maybe based on your experience, maybe we should be checking both of those. I hadn't thought about that. It's a good point. Another thing I recommend is that the countdown is maybe not 60 seconds. That's by default. 60 seconds is a long time for me personally. If I'm ready to go on to my next thing, I tend to make it 30 seconds or even 15 seconds. So give students warning already, and then, because otherwise when you hit close, then it starts this timer and it'll wait 30 seconds or 60 seconds before it actually closes the room. But whatever, it's not that big a deal.
Then you can leave it and it goes directly to the main session.
Yeah.
It avoids the countdown.
Oh, if you uncheck it. Is that what you're saying, Stacy?
Not even that, like you can, like, you leave and then it says close the rooms, and then you have the countdown, but then there's another little blue button that says leave the room, and it goes directly to the main room.
Yeah, that's true. And that would be true individually. It just means as a whole, you'd still be waiting for everybody else to come back. But it's a good point. Individually, you could leave at any time if this other thing is checked on, like allowing participants to return to the main session. So when you're ready, then you just open all rooms and people, boom, go out into the breakout rooms. And so then what it looks like is you get this screen when you open a breakout, and you'll see each of the rooms, who's in each room. And if you want to go visit them, which I've done today, right, is you click join, right? So you look for join next to the room. And then as the host, it'll take you there. And anyone who's designated as a host or a co-host can move from room to room. So you could have a co-teacher, if you designate them as a co-host, they could also move from room to room. A tutor, right, they could also move around.
And excuse me, Eric, then how do you leave the room as the host? How do you unjoin?
You leave. So there'll be a little change here that when you actually go into a room, let's say I go into room 1. When I'm in there, if I click on breakout rooms, where the word join here would change and say leave, because I'm actually in room 1. And so then I click leave, or I could just click on join on a different room and it will take me to that room. It's a little easier. Yeah, go ahead, Donna.
Yeah, Eric, as I told you the other day, just for FYI, I don't know what's wrong. My Zoom screen is not saying join. It's where Eric says join. Mine has the number of the room in red. So it'll say 1. And if I mouse over that 1, it says join. I thought I wasn't given the capacity to join. I didn't realize I had a mouse over. Now I know, and now it works. So just in case anybody else comes to get up to that, if you see a number there, mouse over it in order to join in the room.
Yeah, there was reason why I put this second image on the right here. I just found this on the internet.
Yeah.
Is that it looks a little different. You notice instead of join, it has the number of people in that room. And it took Donna a while to figure this out. But when she put her mouse over the number, then it says join. And we don't know what's different about her account or what, but it may look for you, you might not see join, you might see a number here. But if you see that it's blue, it means it's going to be a link, which means it has, some. So I would look for the word join when you roll over that number potentially, if it doesn't look like this.
Last semester it said join. This semester it doesn't. I have no idea why.
Yeah. Another nice thing that you can do, like for example, what you might do when you do breakout rooms, this is what I do sometimes, is you do it automatically or randomly. So I didn't choose these breakout, who was in each room. But let's say I have students, I know that I would prefer one student to work with a different group potentially. Or I see 2 students together, it'd be better for them to be in different rooms or something. You can quickly just move one person. Let's say like Julio here, I moused over here and I could easily, if I go over here and click on room 2, for example, it'll just move him to that room. You can also exchange students. So you click on one student, it would swap them with another student. This is still in the setup before you open the classroom, but you can actually move students around when the breakout rooms are already happening. So that'd probably be a little confusing for students, right? If they're in the middle of a conversation and get moved to another room, right? But you can move people around.
Eric, I have something else.
Yeah.
We often do breakout rooms really close to the start of class.
Yeah.
And often people come in late.
Yeah.
So what I end up doing is just putting people in the rooms that need more people.
Yep.
So you can do that as well. You need to
Right.
do that.
So how do you do that?
So when you're like often I'm in breakout rooms, I jump from one to another and I see like when I go on participants, it shows, first of all, it dings when somebody new comes in. So I have that operating. So I know there's a new student coming in. So I get alerted to that. And then their names get displayed up where you have room 1, or I don't know, it gets displayed somewhere. And then I know that that person doesn't have a room that they're in.
Yeah, I think, go ahead.
It says unassigned across the top and their name next to it, and allows you to move them to whichever room you prefer if they're not in a room already.
Right, so somewhere up here above room 1, it would say unassigned, and then the
Correct.
students who are not yet in a room.
Correct.
Right.
Or people who leave and come back, or people who are kicked off and come back. Yeah.
It's something to pay attention to, because sometimes if you don't notice that somebody came in, they might get lost. They'll be in a room sort of by themselves. They won't even know the class is happening, right? Because they're not in one of the rooms where a conversation is happening. So you kind of have to keep an eye on that, right?
I wonder if there's a way, once everybody's in, I haven't done this, but I wonder if there's a way to maybe put on the whiteboard in the main room that, just sort of alerting students that we're in breakout rooms, we'll be with you shortly or something like that. Have you tried that?
Yeah, but unless you're in that room, that wouldn't be possible. I mean, you can, if you leave one of these breakout rooms, you are in that main area where people come. But if you're in a breakout room, there's no way to show something where you aren't. Right, so like sharing a screen is connected to you. Like, so if you move to a breakout room, that screen is gone. Yeah, there's no way to share something there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
What I do is that I usually use Zoom also with my tablet. So I join with both. And let's say if I leave the room, then I can share the screen with the tablet and still use a slide or something and just let the students know with another device. That something else that I wanted to share too is that before I do the breakout rooms, I usually do more breakout rooms that I'm supposed to, just in case, because you cannot create more breakout rooms once they are already created. So let's say if you have 3 students or 4 that just entered the class, but they already have the instructions of what to do, but the other groups have too many students, then what do you do if there are no more groups? So in that case, I put them together in the group in one of the breakout rooms that I created without any students from the beginning.
Mercedes, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When you say you join with your tablet, because I do that as well, does that mean you move the tablet around to different rooms so they can see what the questions are?
No. So I usually use 2 or 3 devices, my phone, the computer, and the tablet. So whatever instructions I give to students, I send it to them on Remind. I convert them into PDF. I send them to them before we go into the groups. And then from there, they already have the instructions individually. So they can work with instructions without them having to share the screen. Or I use the collaborative documents, Google Docs or something like that. And then from there, let's say I stay with my tablet, I stay in the main session. And then myself, I go around the groups. So my tablet is the one sharing the screen, saying, let's say, we'll be right back, or the names of the students that were assigned to groups or something like that. I can even make myself a co-host with the tablet, and then from there allow students to sign from the tablet while I'm in other classes. It's a lot, but
that is a lot, but that's a smart way of doing it. So it's as though you're there in 3 different ways.
Yes.
So you're able to do things like like 3 personalities kind of.
Yeah, multitask. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't catch the 3. I caught 2. I mean, you're obviously there as a teacher where you can go and talk to people in the breakout rooms. You have a tablet where you're sharing potentially. This is not required, but it's a way to do this. So you have a tablet that's sharing like a note to anyone who comes in late, maybe.
Yes.
And what's the 3rd way?
No, it's just my phone, because I usually, whenever they need, let's say if I'm in one group and then there are people from other groups that need help, they usually text me. So that way I know that they need help, because otherwise then it's either requesting, they send me a request, but what if it is a simple question that I can just send them a text?
I see. So it's not actually, so the 3rd way is not connecting with your to Zoom necessarily.
No,
it's just texting with students.
No, it's just texting them and also sending them the instructions through a chat.
Okay, cool. I took a quick screenshot, I think, of the idea you were sharing, Mercedes, of creating a couple extra rooms potentially.
Okay. Nice.
I think this is what you were saying, that, you know, if you set up the rooms automatically, you can choose, like, that you want 5 rooms, let's say, and it splits students up automatically. But then after that happens, you can add a room or 2. You can rename them, by the way. And then they're there and available if you want to do something on the side. Like if you want to move a student into another room for one-on-one conversation or something like that.
Well, there are students that finish their work early and they don't know what to do, and they're already done, and the other students are still working, and sometimes they want to keep doing more work, but they feel that they're getting behind or something like that. Then they tell me, can you please just give me work and I can work individually? Then I can also send them to a room to work individually.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, so I think we probably easily could spend the whole time on breakout rooms. Maybe we should, but I do actually have this plan to look at a couple other things real quick. Any other questions or comments? I mean, I'm sure there are, but anything burning right now?
I just have a comment,
Yeah.
Eric. I noticed
Libby.
that you sent an email to all the groups. I don't know if you did that instantly and everybody saw your message. So I thought that was very, very cool because, you know, sometimes what Mercedes was saying, we don't know when the students are going to finish something and you have any other instructions, or if you just quickly want to send a different instruction to the groups. But I didn't know how to do that. So you can show us.
Yeah, so once you have the breakout rooms open, let's see here, what does it look like? Oh, so right here, it looks a little different, right? Like right now, this is what the breakout rooms option looks like for me now, because we're not currently in breakout rooms. The rooms are set up, right? I already set the rooms up earlier, but they're not open. If I open them now, everyone will go into the rooms, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as you're saying, once people are in rooms, then it looks more like this. And I have these two options at the bottom. I can close all the rooms or I can broadcast message to all. So if you click on that, you get this option here where you can type whatever you want. And that's where, this is where your opportunity to write a message to everybody. And then you hit broadcast and it goes to everybody, all the groups. It doesn't go into the chat. It goes kind of, I mean, you saw where it came, I think maybe like at the top of the screen, and then it disappears after a few seconds.
On top.
Is there
a way, before we leave, is there a way to share screens in the breakout room? Is that possible?
It is possible for sure, but it's not something the teacher can do. I mean, a teacher could do it, but you can't do it in all of them at once. You do it wherever you are. So in order for a screen to be shared in a breakout room, it has to be a student doing it. I mean, unless you would have tutors or something in every room. So, I mean, so it is a good reason why it's useful to teach students how to share their screen. I mean, they can do this, they can share a screen from a computer, they can share it from a phone. Any document they pull up on their own device, they can share. So if it's PDF or a website or something. But yeah, either that or like, you know, Alexis was saying, giving them a link and making sure they're able to open it. Yeah, because you want them to be able to look at something, right? Ideally, it's not just something verbal, right? They need to be looking at something together.
So put the link in the chat. All right. And everybody could see that. Okay.
But it's probably a good idea. I mean, I don't know if anyone has done it. Has anyone taught students how to share screens?
I have.
I have.
And how do you go about that, Moya?
Well, the first time I let class out like 15 minutes early, and then I had 4 students stay and learn how to do it. And then the next day they were the leaders of the group. And then the next day I had 4 other students stay, and then the next day. So pretty much everybody, 2 students never figured it out, but it was fine because I would email them the documents in the morning and the group leader would know how to open it.
That's a lovely idea, choosing a few students to teach after class, because it's definitely easier to teach something like that in a smaller group. And then, yeah, spreading. It's not like everybody in a group needs to know how to do it. It's really just need one person who can share their screen, right? Mercedes, do you do something different?
Sorry, on sharing the screen?
Or teaching students how to share?
In breakout rooms or the whole class?
Well, either way.
I've done it, but it's just, the only thing is that I have to make it so that way multiple participants can share the screen. And then the thing is that some of them have, let's say, use a tablet, others use a phone, and others use a computer. So it doesn't give you the same options to share something. So I cannot tell them, oh, choose option 2, you're going to have a whiteboard, because it's different from someone that has a computer. So So I don't even, I think I roll with whatever. So let's say if I ask them, who has a computer? Okay, so can you try to share your screen now? And then they share the screen. Okay, so I assign students to do it one by one, and then they share different things. But
I also had like, she brought up a good point. I had like, I don't use my cell phone, so I had one or two people figured out how to share on their cell phone, and then I had them with all the cell phone people, and they actually taught them how to do it on the cell phone. So that the students actually, some of them were quicker with technology than I am, right? So they figured it out like this, and then they taught the other students how to use the phone. So by the end, everybody but one got it. So.
One thing to point out is that in order for students to share, you need to make sure the option is on. There's a secure, like when you're the host, there's a security button on your toolbar. And so you want to make sure that share screen is checked on. Otherwise, it's just not possible. This is where you can turn on and off the waiting room and things like that as well.
The other thing, sorry to interrupt, I learned
No.
one other thing the hard way. I forgot to enable the audio, and I was showing, we were doing a listening activity. And I thought that they just weren't understanding, but they just literally couldn't hear. So I learned that you have to also connect to audio and teach the student that if they want to share an audio, they have to connect with the audio.
And Moya, did you mean like when you were sharing something through your screen?
Yes, I was sharing a video and I didn't share the audio, which you have to do every single time. I didn't realize that. And I thought they just couldn't understand any of the English, but they didn't hear a thing.
I've gotten in the habit of whenever I share screen to check that box in case, even if I'm not using the audio right then, if I need the audio later, it's already checked. So I get in the habit of whenever I hit share screen, I go ahead and check the box.
Exactly, yeah.
Let's take a quick look at annotation. So we're gonna do a little bit, talk about annotation real quickly, play around with it a little bit, and then move on to a poll. You know, all this stuff takes practice and playing around with. So I encourage you to try it with students or try it with a couple other teachers. To figure out the details, but I'm happy to stick around afterwards as well. So just from the beginning, in case for those, can I get another, maybe a show of hands or thumbs up for those people who have used annotation themselves? Fair amount, okay, at least half. Who's used it as a teacher? Is that the same folks? It's a little bit different when you're finding it. So when right now, like to find annotation, and one thing to notice actually is if no one's sharing, you can't annotate. I don't know if that's obvious, right? That there's not, you have to be, a screen has to be shared to be, for any annotation to happen. But you can annotate on anything. It doesn't have to be a whiteboard. It could be a video. I mean, that's, I guess that doesn't really work, but it could be an image, it could be a PDF. It's you can write on anything, right? So once I share my screen, you should, I think, somewhere see where it says you are viewing Eric Appleton's screen, I guess. Now this is true. Yeah, feel free to start annotating. Maybe folks would underline, I don't know, pronouns or circle nouns or something, just to play around with a little bit. This is another one of those situations where it's different when, for students, or different when on a phone. Can anyone type? I've noticed, I think like on a phone, typing doesn't work as far as I know. A tablet, I don't think typing works, but the other tools do work.
At,
There are also different kinds of drawing tools you may have noticed, like rectangles, circles,
in the,
arrows.
sorry, Eric, in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
tablet, I think it works, the text. Well,
Oh, it does?
yeah, I've used it many times, the text in the tablet as a student.
Good to know, but maybe not on a phone.
On the
No,
iPad, it doesn't work.
Oh, no?
I'm using an iPad right now and I'm having a hard time. I was able to get the toolbar to annotate, but I didn't see the option to be able to like type in or write in something like a keyboard. I didn't see it. I think they're all a little bit different.
Okay, okay, because in mine I do it.
It's interesting. And I think like a Chromebook maybe doesn't have it, but doesn't have, I don't know if anyone has a Chromebook, but I know some students do. And just to notice that when you're sharing, it looks a little different, you know, so you're going to look, the annotate will be on your own meeting control toolbar when you're the host, or actually it's not when you're the host, it's when you're sharing. So you could even be a participant. So like if, for example, somebody else could share right now, and we will see that they would see that. Could I ask somebody else to share?
I was trying.
Maybe share a whiteboard?
So wait a minute, if I, okay, view options,
So this is Donna's screen.
annotate.
Yeah, so now I'm seeing it as an just a normal participant. I don't see it as I don't see it as a host. It's not. It's just the same as yours is now. Here's a question: what for? Who is there? Anyone here who uses annotation quite a bit?
I do.
So how do you share? I mean, sorry, forgive me, not do you share? Do you save images that you've done with students? Do you save the work?
So it depends if I'm using a website, because if I'm using the tablet, I have a digital notebook. So what I do is that I import PDF documents into the notebook, and I can just write there. And then as soon as the class is done, I send the PDF to the students.
But you're not using a Zoom annotation to write with, are you?
No. But if I'm using websites as of Khan Academy or Brain Pop, I would use annotation.
And then do you save those images?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, just because the text or whatever is there, as soon as you scroll down or scroll up, everything stays there. And then the image, that whatever you wrote stays there, but you're able to scroll up and scroll down. It's just not going to be worth it.
Right.
I used to use the Zoom annotation function a lot, but for the reason that Mercedes just said, the minute you scroll up, the type follows with it. And then my students would say, can you put that back? Can you put that back? And I'd put it, and it was gone. So I've stopped using it. And now I'm doing all my lessons on PowerPoint, because when you use the text function in PowerPoint, the annotation function, AKA the text function, it stays with the document. It's a lot more versatile than the Zoom annotation function.
Is everyone following what Mercedes and Donna is saying about the annotation not staying with the text? Does that make sense, what they're saying?
Yeah, I use that today.
It's like
in
here's the problem. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Katen.
Yeah, this is what happened. I use it in Jamboard. One of my students wrote on Jamboard, and every time we flipped another slide, what she had written just transferred to the next slide. because she annotated it.
Yeah, it drove me nuts, which is, I think you can take a screenshot of it after you've typed into it and then share that with people still need to see it. But otherwise, that's why I started doing my lessons in PowerPoint versus the screen share in Zoom.
So to what Donna said, I used to, because I teach science and math. So I used to use annotation for the science, but I got to the point that it wasn't useful. So I started using it for the math. So what I do is I let the students solve it on the board, you know, to see if they understand what they're doing. And with them doing that, I screenshot it, you know. So once they're done, I screenshot my page and I send it to them like, okay, this is what you guys did. And this is, you know, the problem you guys did.
So yeah, so that, I mean, that is one way. I mean, so for all the reasons that people have mentioned, I think Zoom annotation is useful or interesting, but it also has problems. So, but like Emmanuel's saying, you can save the annotation. So in the annotation toolbar, if you have it up right now, I'm curious to know if you have that save function on the toolbar.
Yes.
Right, so if you click on save,
Ah.
it will save whatever's here. I mean, we haven't actually annotated it all, so, but it would save whatever's on the screen, right? So
it saves it live, or it saves it in another document that you have to then open?
it saves it as it's just basically a screenshot, like Emmanuel said. It just saves an image of the screen. And it,
now, if you scroll down, we'll still see that heart in the same place?
Yep. Yeah, no, because it's still right, it's still Zoom annotation.
Yeah.
But if you're using in the way that Emmanuel is, like where you have, you know, a math problem that's on the screen and the students work it out, and then you want to save it and bring it back later, you can hit save. And then what happens is this little thing pops up where it says saved as PNG, show folder.
Yeah.
You can click on that, and what it does is it automatically saves that file as a screenshot on your computer. So it is possible to then open it back up later on. Right, so like with Zoom creates a folder on your computer in something called like a Zoom folder somewhere. It depends whether the Mac or PC, with the date and the name of the meeting. And so when you hit save, it will save that on your computer. This little link that says show in folder, if you click on that, it'll open up the folder where the file is saved. So it is one way to then pull something back up from earlier in the class, last week, if you want to send it to students. I don't know if it's the most efficient way to do it. I think, Donna, like what you're using for a language class, maybe PowerPoint is a better way to do it. But for math teaching, it's a question. Like you're really writing notes, you're demonstrating. You can't really do that just in text. So it's a question of like, what is the best way to do it?
Eric, what's PNG?
It's sort of like it's an image file format of like JPEG.
PDF.
It's just like on a PC. It's the last. It's just the I'm sorry. Somebody have a better explanation of what it is?
It's similar to a.
No, because it gives an option of PNG and PDF, so it's two options.
It's a picture format versus a PDF. It's like a JPEG. I don't know what the difference is. Something to do with the resolution.
PDF might be better, actually, potentially. That might be easier to share with and maybe more readable, but I haven't really played around with it too much.
Eric, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So if I took if I did a worksheet, it had 10 blanks and we all filled them in together as a class, and I took a screenshot of that, can I drag that screenshot into my chat box and share it with the students as something for them to review, or no?
Yeah, no, that's not really the way. You'd have to share it with them in some other way.
It wouldn't work in the chat box. Okay.
Potentially it's possible. I think you can technically share files through chat. but it's one of those issues where the CUNY security guidelines for Zoom say that we shouldn't have the file sharing option available in chat.
I see.
I would recommend that you share it in some other way, like
WhatsApp.
Classroom, WhatsApp, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So in the interest of time, we don't have a lot. So I'd like us to set up a quick poll. I know this isn't really enough time to practice this stuff. So sort of a warm up a little bit in each of these things. How many people have used polls with their class? Katse, Stacy. Okay, a couple people. Cool. How many people have used other kinds of surveys like Google Forms, Microsoft Forms, maybe SurveyMonkey? Okay, so at least 4 or 5 people. I mean, the truth is, I think these are all pretty similar, and it may be that some of those other tools are actually better. One issue with the polls is it's sort of like the annotation, is it kind of disappears after you do it. I mean, it is possible to pull the results back up, but like a Google form in Google Classroom might be a better way of doing a survey or a poll of students than a Zoom poll. Like if you use Google Classroom, now I know that everyone is, but if you were to use Google Classroom and you do like a survey or a quiz or something in there, all your data, all your results get saved in that same place. So they're all easily accessible later on. In Zoom, it is accessible, but I don't find it that easy to find later on. But in case people do want to try polls out, we'll just go over them kind of quickly. The first step to set up a poll is to go into your Zoom account in a browser. Like you have to go and log in in a browser, find the meeting or find the class, the scheduled class that you want to use the poll in, and then you create the poll in that class. Now, unfortunately, if you want to create a poll for more than one class, you have to create the poll from scratch within each class. That's one of the things I don't like about it. If you create a poll in Google Forms, you could then use that same form, same poll in any class, right? You can make a copy of it, you could share it easily. In Zoom, you have to kind of create the whole thing from scratch. But we're going to create one together, and then we'll try it out together. So basically what you do is you log into your account, you find meetings section in the browser, you find your scheduled class, and we're going to go find this one that we're in right now, this group, and then you look at the bottom for a poll section, and that's where you add the poll. So by the way, all these notes here, I'm going to send these to you later, so I know it's a little more text than we can read right now, but I'll send it all to you afterwards. So I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to reshare what am I going to do here? No, I'm going to go ahead and log in. So
You're muted, Eric.
I'm muted.
No, I hear you.
I hear you.
No, you're not.
Okay, good. Because I've been talking for a while. Hopefully Katay can hear me or hear us. So in a browser here, right, you have to log in. I'm already logged in here, right? And hopefully anyone who has new CUNY First accounts is able to log into their Zoom account. So if you go to meetings here, sorry, it's a little slow. You'll see each of the meetings, like the upcoming meetings. And so you go ahead and open the meeting you have with the class, the one where you want to poll. You scroll down towards the bottom and find the poll section. And you'll notice that we have no poll here, right? So let's add a poll. So the first thing is just to add a title. This is just so you can find the poll. It doesn't actually show up on the screen. So poll for a meeting. You won't see this. I see it on my end. And then here we can ask a question. So I have a question about like which of the tools we looked at today will you use, students? Let's see here, what do we got? Breakout rooms, annotation. Single choice means that you have to choose one of these, like, so there's one correct answer, or, you can only choose one choice, right? Multiple choice is like, multiple select is the other way of saying that, right? That you can choose more than one. And then you hit save, and you can add more than one question in a poll, right? You can have multiple questions. What else? They're all multiple choice, so it's not like you can do really a short answer question. I kind of want to ask a short answer question, but anyone else have a multiple choice question we could ask? What's your favorite? Stephen, how's that? So then we have two questions. I hit save. And ideally, the poll will now be available for me. You can see when I go back to the poll section, I've got 2 questions here. And now when I go to poll, now my one fear is that this won't show up, but we'll see. When I go to polls in my meeting controls, yep. They're both there. I have to hit launch polling, and now you should see them. And so now we can all respond. So I'll give you 10 seconds.
Eric, is the student's name available with the answer, or is it just all anonymous?
I didn't check anonymous, so the name should be available, but we might have to go look. We have to go look in the reports to get it. I'll show you in a minute what I see. So anyone still need to respond? 2 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to end polling. I'm going to share results. You should see the results. I don't see any names. I don't think you will either.
Eric, does it tell you how many people actually responded?
It does, right? You're just seeing percents, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Which I don't really understand that, but so for the first one, I see the first poll was 11 out of 13, 2 out of 13, 4 out of 13.
On my iPad, I see the number.
Oh, really?
Yeah, next to the percentage in parentheses. It gives
Really?
me the number.
Anybody else?
I do not see it on my computer, just a percentage.
Yes.
Interesting. All right, Thea. So there we go. We have one advantage of being on a tablet. That's funny. So I see the absolute number and the percent. I'm not really sure what the logic is that you don't get to see it, or not everyone does.
It's interesting because for number 1, I chose all 3 of those. So it's because you said multiple choice. So I'm not sure how you use this if you give people more than one choice.
Well, for me, I can see that 11 out of 13 people here plan to use breakout rooms. I see that 2 out of 13 people plan to use plan to use annotation, and 4 out of 13 plan to use polls. It's more than 100%, right? So, because since people can choose more than one, but almost everybody's going to plans to use breakout rooms, and some people plan to use annotation and polls, and summer and fall are tied. That's interesting. But so here, let me show you one other thing here. So the polls, if you're interested, are saved in your account. So I haven't actually looked at this recently, but we can go into, are you looking at my Zoom screen, hopefully, my account?
Yeah.
If you go into reports, have you all spent any time there yet?
No.
Yeah, we should take a look at that, because one thing that everyone should know is that you can check attendance there. Does everyone know that?
No.
It's
The
brand
report?
new. It's so much easier than it used to be. So let's look at that first. You can check attendance for your meetings or your classes. So if you go to reports and usage, Let's see here. What should I look? Let's look at something last week.
So if there's a dispute about attendance, however your program is reporting it, I can go in here and get the attendance.
Yeah. So here, I did a Google Classroom workshop last week. I'm sorry, go ahead, Tim, go ahead.
No, I just want to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly.
Well, here, let me, there's a caveat to this, but let me show you first how it works. So every session you have should have attendance as far as I can tell. So here, I did a workshop on Google Classroom last week. When I scroll to the right here, you see where it says 27? That's a link, right? So if I click on that, it's showing me, I got this zoomed in here.
Great.
It's showing me the attendance. Now, one thing I tend to do is have it show unique users. I think whenever you go in and out of a breakout room, it doubles, like it adds like a second instance of your participation or something. But so if you click show unique users, then it just lists each person's name once.
Wow.
So here's the attendance, right? And you can see how long people were there for too, right?
Could you get that as a co-host also? Would it work for both the host and the co-host?
You'd have to look. My guess is no, because I think it's probably only in the account where the meeting was scheduled, right? So I had to go into Zoom, log into the browser, go to the reports, and I'm the one who scheduled the meeting. I don't think it's going to show up also somewhere else for someone who didn't schedule it.
Okay, right.
Now, one thing that's true here is you see full names and email addresses, right? This is because I had you register for this meeting. So if you don't have students register, like if you just give everyone a meeting code and an ID, they're not necessarily going to have an email address here. And it's not necessarily going to have their real name, right? If they come to your class and it says iPad,
Yeah.
right, or something like people don't have their screen name that reflects their actual name, then this is probably going to just show iPad, right? So the people's screen name has to be correct. Like, so you either have to either use registration or some way to make sure that everyone's screen name is correct. But then this attendance is here.
So you access this through the browser settings of Zoom, not through the Zoom app, correct?
Correct.
I find the two a bit confusing. Why are there two different versions of logging into Zoom? But
I agree, it is confusing.
Yeah. Now I'm having a problem disabling my waiting room. Is that something you could help me out with? I was going to put it in the chat.
Let me point one more thing out before we move on to that for sure. But the other thing to look at under reports, notice that we were just in this meetings. No, where were we? We were under this usage section for attendance. Under meeting, you see how it says view registration reports and poll reports. So if I click poll report, and you'll see here's our poll, engaging students with Zoom. I click, so I have to have the right time frame and the right choice here, not registration report, but poll report, and then click generate. Is that right? Poll report. Make sure this is correct. Generate. This doesn't seem right.
That's your 10 a.m. meeting.
Yeah, it may be that the meeting has to end before it shows up here as a report.
Well, show us the one you did at 10 a.m.
Yeah, but there wasn't really a poll.
Oh.
I haven't done a poll in a long time. I'm sorry, I don't have an example of one. I'll put it in the notes. I mean, basically what it's going to be, I think, is a spreadsheet with everybody's names and your choices. But I'll put it in the notes afterwards to send out to you all. Does anyone have an answer for Tim? He's trying to figure out how to turn off the waiting room.
Yeah, because I have it off, but it's still, it hasn't disabled it.
I think
this morning in settings that Zoom has determined that you must either use a number or a waiting room, that you don't have a choice
That's true.
setting.
Yeah. Starting September 27th was the email that had come out. I think it came out in the summertime.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
When
So
you
that's
mean
it.
a number, when you say a number, you mean like a passcode?
Password.
Yeah,
Password.
code, sorry.
Yeah.
Does Zoom send email alerts when they change this stuff? And how does one get on that distribution list if that's true? Because I've never gotten one.
Good question. I'm not sure. I do recommend that you update your Zoom program on your computer if you haven't done that recently.
However, see,
Yeah,
because
go
I have 2 Zoom classes, so my daytime class, though, it's disabled. All right, I'll have to go back and look, because that's what I was saying. How come I have it disabled in one and I can't do it in the other?
Maybe you have a passcode in one, but not the other, because you
All
have
right.
to have one or the other.
All right.
You don't have to have both, but maybe your
There is a password for them to get in. Okay, I have to see. So my City Tech students don't have a password? Okay.
So Tim, another place to look is this, this security button on your toolbar.
Mm-hmm.
Have you tried, look, when you go, you won't see it now, but when you're in your class, when you click on security, you can
I may be
uncheck
able to disable it then. Ah, okay. Once I'm in.
once you're in,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. I haven't tried that. That once I'm in, okay, try to disable it. Okay, thank you.
So, of course, we ran out of time like we always do. I'm wondering if there's any particular specific things that anyone wants to practice.